As Camden National Bank celebrates 150 years of supporting local businesses, customers, and communities with their financial needs, we want to thank those who put their trust in us. You're the real reason we're celebrating this exciting milestone. And while we've grown to help more individuals and businesses, our commitment to giving back to our community remains constant. Whether it's joining in the fun at the Camden Snow Bowl for the annual US National Toboggan Championship, or serving cookies and cocoa at Christmas by the Sea, or handing out towels following the Camden Windjammer Festival lobster crate races in the summertime, we continue to immerse ourselves in our communities. That way, those who live here know they have a true financial partner. We're thankful for the work Camden Famous is doing to shine a light on the businesses and neighbors who have contributed to shaping this Midcoast community and our organization.
Welcome to the Camden Famous podcast. I'm your host, April Shaw-Beaudoin, and we are here today with KEA Testament of KEA Dance Center. We're so excited to get into all the details, and welcome to the show, KEA. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. This is such an honor and a privilege to get to share, what we do and my story and why I'm here in Camden.
Amazing. Well, I want to start all the way back at the beginning. So that for me is when you knew that dance was something special.
So way back to the beginning, because you said so. So we grew up in southern Maine, me and my sister and my brother with my parents, and we were very, very poor. And my sister would go to ballet lessons all the time. She was trained in professional Russian Vaganova, trained in professional Russian Vaganova ballet. And my dad took me to a music store while I was waiting for her to get out of one of her lessons. And they couldn't afford to put me in classes. So they bought me a Michael Jackson tape. And I played that tape every single night. I danced for hours and hours and hours. They would pound on the ceiling to tell me to come down for dinner, and I'd go back upstairs. So they were like, I guess she's fine without dance classes. So I danced in my room or out in the field, wherever I was, just with any music I could find, anything. My dad was a musician, and I grew up kind of in the bar, hanging around pool halls. So I listened to Muddy Waters and Led Zeppelin and Paul Simon and all sorts of different Jethro Tull, the musical buffet was just at my fingertips as a kid. And I think it was a culmination of life being challenging and not realizing it at the moment, but I would find myself in my bed, covering my eyes and listening to my headphones, to whatever music was inspiring me. And that was my safe space. That was where I escaped, and I visualized, being on stage or being a dancer, and the mean kids that were bullying me at school, being wow, she looks so cool. Teenage or childhood dreams. That was an escape from real life that was really hard at the time.
And so that is part one of your story, you said, all the way back to the beginning. I know that you and I have talked, and you have said it was high school.
So in high school, it was that girl from age 5 with the bad Michael Jackson tape all the way through. And, I think, so much of what I do is trying to help teens find a safe space. And I ended up building what I was looking for my whole life. And so when I was a teen, I wore hand-me-down clothes. I was bullied. I never fit in with the cool kids. I just didn't understand how everybody did life. And I was always looking for that manual that told you how to do it, that it seemed like everyone else had. And I was struggling. And then I saw this dance team perform at the basketball game at Camden Rockport High School, back when it was still on Knowlton Street. And I was a sophomore. And these girls were jamming it out Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and Britney. And I was I had this feeling come up inside me of I don't know how it's going to be possible, but I need to do what they're doing. And I went to the teacher who's Annie Larita, and I said, can I join? And she's like, oh, just go to the Y and sign up for the dance team. And anytime I was smart enough to know that hearing the word sign up meant you had to pay. So I didn't even ask my parents. I just figured it wasn't going to be for me. And then I saw them perform again the next year. And I went back And I was like, listen, Miss Larita, like, is there anything I can do? Like, I can't afford to pay for classes. And she said, she like, kind of gave me this look like, who's this like really excited girl? And kind of looked me up and down. And she's like, just stop by the Y. We'll work it out. And she gave me a chance to show up to one of the classes and said, if you learn this whole dance that they've been working on for 3 months, then you can perform it at the basketball
And
game.
she wanted you to learn it in one session, right?
One session.
That was it.
It was the old YMCA on Chestnut Street that if you've been here for a while in this area, you know what that was. It was like a mint green rug in the exercise room above. And, and I showed up and all the girls are in there with their like dance clothes and like their proper stuff. And I'm just like in the back, just doing my thing, just like this. And I learned the whole dance in 1 hour.
Wow.
And so I think she saw something in me that was, worth seeing, that no one had ever seen before. That I didn't even know was good enough. My value system of like my self-worth was so low. And she said, why don't you work with me and we'll do a work trade? And she let me come in to trade and help her with choreography and just help her assist in classes. And she taught me how to teach and let me be on the dance team. And I got to perform in that basketball game. My life changed.
Huh.
The inclusion, the belonging, the being given a chance despite my circumstances. Yeah. So, and that's why today, we have a no student turned away for inability to pay policy because of her, because of that.
Yeah.
It's too early to start crying.
It's a powerful story. And that wasn't it for you. I mean, it was it for you in terms of changing the trajectory of how you saw yourself and where you saw your future going. And you became an instructor after high school. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a little personal. I hope that's okay.
Yeah.
So I, the situation in my family was the same. We didn't have the money to go to college and I just didn't understand how things worked. Like I applied for college and got in, but I didn't understand you had to have financial aid and all of that. And we just, and I just have to say, like, my parents did amazing with what they had and they loved me and taught me about expression and creativity and art. But I really went into trying to be an adult without a full toolkit. But everything happens for a reason. Like I fully believe that. And so I stayed home in Camden and everyone went off to college and Annie sprained her ankle. And she said, hey, you've been helping me out in my classes and I know you're not moving yet. Do you mind covering this 6-week session of dance and leading all the classes? And, and you'll get paid. And I said, sure, why not? Like, I love it. But at that time I was thinking of like, I was a big runner and I was in the Junior Olympics for running. And I was thinking of going to school to train for the Olympics and all of that. And I taught one of the first classes that fall session in September. I was 18 years old. I just graduated from high school months earlier. And so it was 2002. And this 4th grade group comes up and you really see who people are when they're learning. And, there was this girl in the back and she like kind of was grimy a little bit and her hair was a mess and her clothes were too big and the girls were like mean to her. And I just was like, oh yeah, that's me just 10 years ago. And teaching, like dance made me feel like I was worth it. Like something was speaking to me that now I use language for, like God or higher power, or whatever you believe in, like the universe and the magic of the birds, like whatever you call it, right? To me, that was speaking through me. But that pales in comparison to what it's like to be the conduit of that light for someone else. And that girl came in so low, and halfway through the class, she smiled bigger than any girl in that class. And she was, all over the place, but was having fun. And she came up to me and she said, that's the best I've felt all year. And I walked out of there and I was like, I'm going to be a dance teacher.
Wow.
And I stayed.
Wow.
And I've been teaching. That was 23 years ago.
Wow. So what happened next? We're just going to go through the
Okay.
chronology of your life and your
Yeah.
dance experience.
I worked for the YMCA, and then when I was 19, I had my son. So I was working as a dance teacher in Camden and was, on my path, like, still trying to grow up. And I got attacked by two dogs and was hospitalized for it and got put on a lot of medicine and antibiotics. And I had no idea at the time that that cancels out your birth control. And I'm open about this for teenagers because I think people out there need to know, especially given our climate, that you need to take care of yourself.
Mm.
And I got pregnant.
Mm.
And it was the most wonderful, unexpected surprise in the world. And at the time, I was 19. I had no idea what I was going to do. I was living in a tiny apartment, and my son, Adrian, his father, and I, just did the best that we could. And how grateful am I that I stayed here in Camden because, the world was unfair and I didn't figure out how to go to college. And because of all the hardship I went through, I found out that there was this thing inside me that I wanted to share with everybody, which was the light of dance. And because I stayed, I ended up having my son, Adrian. And that never would have happened if I left this town. And this town at one point was a place that made me feel bad about who I was. You're up on the pedestal. Oh, you're doing such a great job as a teen mom and teaching everybody in Camden. And then you're down from the pedestal. Oh no, you're still young and learning and making mistakes, like up and down, up and down. It's hard to grow up and become a professional in the town that you were a kid in.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't have that experience, but it's hard to be under a microscope. And in a community like the Midcoast that's so small and everyone is intimately connected.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say, I can't drop a spoon in Rockport without somebody in Lincolnville calling their friends to tell them in Belfast about it. So that is a shared experience with a lot of people that I hear from.
And I think I think it's the right thing to just say, like, I made a lot of mistakes. Like, I remember getting in trouble for playing music that had swears in it, and someone in the fitness center complained, and I got in trouble. And like I failed so much trying to figure out how to be a mom and a professional that was a role model and a mentor to young people. And I was 20. Like, I was 21 years old
It's a tall order.
taking care of, at one point I didn't have a car, and I lived on Matthew John Street, Section 8 housing. And I pushed Adrian around in a stroller with the stroller filled with all my laundry and an empty backpack. And I just this was my loop. I went and did my laundry, and I kept him occupied and just brought him with me everywhere. And then I went to clean houses in the morning. And then I stopped by the food pantry and got food. I mean, I'm so grateful for how much this town supported me through being a young mom. And then I'd go back and pick up the laundry. Then I'd push him and me up to the YMCA to teach dance classes. So I was doing the best that I could with the resources and the tools that I had. And loving my son has been the current that has kept me above water, where the reality of how hard it is to be a single mom can really drown you. And dance was like the wind that just was always there, pushing me in the direction that I think God wanted me to go.
I think you told me last time we talked that KEA Dance Center, 'cause it's the same as your name, but it stands for something. Let's say what it stands for. It's Kinetic
Energy Alive.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've had that open for 15 years now.
Yeah, this is our 15-year. Our upcoming show is our celebration for our 15 years of providing dance to the Midcoast communities.
Wow. And have you been in the same location?
No, we've moved around a little bit. Like, so I worked at the YMCA, and then another, worked with another dance group for a while. And when I was, I think, in my 9th year of teaching, I opened KEA. And rented from different local studios, renovated one big facility, and then during the pandemic was unfortunately not able to stay there, and then found a new location. And again, it's all a blessing. Like at the time, it was the worst, most horrible, unfair thing happening, and then to like lose everything you built. And then all of a sudden, this new facility became open where I am now on 6 Virginia. And it was such a blessing. It's the most beautiful studio space. And I work around really incredible people and have great landlords. And it's like such a perfect home for what I'm doing.
One of the things I also want to talk about, and I love this has been thematically true with some of the other interviews, is that people are making it a point to be accessible for ages 6 to 76. And I think that's even the numbers that you've referenced when we talked. And that seems to be like the two ends of the spectrum that people are talking about. So I would love for you to share how you do offer classes that are available to such a wide range of skill levels and ages and genders too.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of topics in there. I think the first thing that's worth pointing out is that I know who I'm for and who I'm not for.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I love, like, the youngest I'll teach is 7 or 8, and it's actually because of that's the youngest that a child's brain should be actively conforming their creative expression to counts and structure. Their development in their brain hasn't hit this place yet where it makes sense for their body and kind of can cut off their creativity if they come in too soon to do the dancing, the teaching that I teach, right? That's just where my sweet spot is, where I start. And I've had people come in and do modern with me and hip hop all the way up until 70 or 76 was, this awesome woman that danced with me. And she was like, I'm doing hip hop in your next show. And she did it. It was amazing. And I think that there's a lot of dance in this community that's available for all the different types of people. And so I teach multiple styles of dance. I train, I constantly keep up my training. Like I was just in New York City training with one of Michael Jackson's choreographers. I travel nationwide and internationally to work with the people that really inspire me, because continuing my education is the way that I can continue to give to all of my students. And I make sure that, what I'm teaching the kids is very similar to what I'm teaching the teens and the adults, but it's the delivery and the approach. I teach kids for a different reason than I teach teens. And
let's talk about what those reasons are.
So KEA was this dream that I had my whole life that I didn't realize was a dream I needed. I believe that I built the place I was looking for my whole life, when I was a kid and when I was a teen and as an adult.
Wow.
And so that's what always keeps me on the beam with integrity of like, am I, does this need to be said? Does this need to be said by me? Does this need to be said by me right now? How am I showing up for these different types of people? I don't offer competition dance because that's not my focus. My focus is creating an opportunity and a safe space for people to come in as they are. And for kids, for example, they need a place where they can just have fun and just be accepted and be seen and move their body and work on coordination, understand musicality, and like reading the music and figuring out what's the path that's going to take them towards their most honest and authentic expression of self. So I'm testing them with all these different types of music and all these different types of speaking and communication. And what Mirabelle needs is different from what Ava needs, is different from what Molly needs. But they're all in this hip hop class together. So my approach with teaching kids is very methodical, that I'm making sure I'm touching on lighting up all of these centers of their brain and finding out who really likes in the moment communication that tells me a lot about their learning style, who needs to hear something at the end of class so they really take it home, and who needs to hear something in the beginning of class but not in front of other people. What makes their fear receptors go off? What makes their confidence light up or go down? That's what I'm really doing. Dance is just like my locomotive to get me in front of kids. And with teenagers, if it's okay to talk about the approach with teens, which is what I'm like so incredibly passionate
Yeah.
about taking out to the world. So
Yeah.
I designed over the years, I just am the way that I am. Like, I'm KEA, I'm silly, I'm dorky, I make self-deprecating jokes. I don't take myself too seriously when I'm with the kids, but I am serious when they need clarity. Like, my method of being my authentic self is the example that I like to give them of like, it's okay to figure out who you are, you know, on this journey of life. And for teenagers, there's so much pressure on teens.
Yeah.
So here I am just being, sorry, I'm trying to stay clear on focus here. I'm just being me. And over the years, I'm realizing that there's something different about what I'm doing at my studio that's happening other places. And thank God, let me just say that I love that every dance studio out there is doing what they're doing, because if anyone tried to do what I'm doing, no one can be KEA.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd be so unhappy if they tried. And I can't be them. I'd be so unhappy if I tried. So it's wonderful that there's all these different types of dance, but what I'm providing people is this place to come in and learn your why. Why are you here? Why are we moving our body? And dance is just the locomotive that gets teenagers that opening of their heart to like quiet the mind and let the heart open so that their spirit can guide them in the path through all the hardships that teens are facing. So I ended up developing what it turned into was the KEA method, which is based off of 5 pillars that I
Let's talk
follow.
about 'em.
Okay.
Go. Do it.
This is great. Okay. If I'm just talking too long, you just cut me off. So it's better if I use like I'll use like a story example. Okay.
Great.
So anybody out there, like who's listening, would never go through their day like being sweaty and kind of grimy and picking up the debris from the day, and then go home at night and then skip washing their face and put on a face mask and go to bed, right? Or put makeup on over like the grime that you're picking up through your day, right? So that doesn't make sense. We wash our face, we get clean, we get reset, and then we take care of ourselves. And so I like to imagine, I'll just set the scene like, so let's say these teenagers are going through their day at school. They're picking up everybody else's grime around them, and they're picking up someone bullying them, maybe a guy or girl or whoever isn't texting them back, and they're feeling unwanted and not relevant or not beautiful. And then they're being left out of like the friend hangout, or they're talking to a friend and saying like, can I talk to you about this thing? And then feeling fear of trusting and feeling fear of betrayal. So they're picking up all these real life things that us adults actually deal with, but we have a different filter system because we've gotten so good and so habitualized at how to keep going without really listening to these things that are happening. Teens aren't there yet with this ingrained, cemented, habitual response to life on life's terms. They're building it now. And so like if you kind of imagine that teens have these 2 filters, only 2, we have a bunch, right? Some of them are coping mechanisms, some of them are actual filters, right? But so teens have these 2 filters. One of them is like things that go in this filter tell them that they're valid and that they're good enough and that they're doing great and keep going and you're awesome and you're getting it and like awesome. And then this filter over here, which is a stark contrast, is you didn't do this good enough. You're not worthy. Their value meter starts to go down. So all these experiences that they're picking up throughout the day are going into one of these buckets, one of these filters. Then they go into a classroom and the teacher, they don't know this, but maybe the teacher spilled their coffee on the way, or they got in a fight with their partner, or they're worried about money, or they're dealing with adulting things. And they snap at the girl when the girl asks a question, and now the girl's feeling fear and she doesn't know if she's going to answer the test right. And then she's worried that she's going to get a 0. And she's not here. And it's filtering that she's not worthy of asking a question or being listened to or seen. So kids go through picking all this up. And then they show up to the dance studio. And it's my job to help them wash their emotional face. And the pillars are mindset. What's your mindset coming in here right now? What's your emotions,
Mm-hmm.
your creative currency, and also the emotions, feelings we all know come from our thoughts. So what's honest? Feelings aren't facts, but they definitely are guideposts to where kids are at. Your body, what's in your facility today? Did you have enough sleep? Did you drink enough water? Have you had enough protein? Are you prepared to dance? Do you have an injury you're ignoring because you're fearful of missing out on choreography?
Mm-hmm.
Habits. What are the habits that's running your life? Like, what are you doing in the morning to get yourself centered? Or how are you doing breathing exercises when fear and stress comes up in school? And then the fifth pillar is creativity. And as artists, we're creating art because we need to. Like, I need to create art because it's creating food from the parts of myself that words can't articulate. And teaching young people how to be artists while also using their bodies like athletes is an incredibly thin line to balance on and walk and make sure it is not about the teacher. I am a service position. So when they walk through that door, it's how do I set those pillars? How do we think of what pillar means? These aren't laurels we rest on. They're pillars that hold you up, hold up whatever foundation you're trying to build. It's just so you can be yourself. So we use the statement, we say, what's in your facility, right? And I could say that to you. I could say, April, what's in your facility today? I want to go hike a mountain. And you're like, I'm kind of tired and I pulled my hamstring. That's not in my facility to hike a mountain. Could we go for a stroll down my street? Right? So teaching kids to use what's in my facility today. And that's not just with dance, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. What's in their facility for today? They just had, this is real life stuff that's happening, coming through the door is, and first of all, I'm not telling dancers what to do with the feelings. I'm asking them how they are. And then I'm listening. And then I'm asking them if there's anything else. And then I'm listening again. And then I'm asking them, do you want my feedback or would you like a hug? Do you want to dance or do you want to talk more? And this comes from Harville Hendrix, Getting the Love You Want, the Imago dialogue. It's like very specific communication that I've trained in and comes from a little bit of nonviolent communication training that I've done. Because I think the world is so fast that kids don't want to share. They don't know how to share because the world isn't listening. So, yeah, I'm a dance teacher, and I can teach
And
you.
she's a TED Talk speaker.
Did you hear that? Yes, let's do that. And Simon Sinek, if you're out there, and so if one of those dancers, let's say that avatar of the dancer that we just built, which is real life stuff that I hear, maybe on top of the stuff happening in school, her parents got in a fight, or her siblings fought with her, or her best friend isn't texting her back and she's worried and consumed, and then maybe her pet just died. And so what are these kids experiencing? They're experiencing grief. They're experiencing loss. They're experiencing how to be in the world when the whole world is telling them that you need to go to school from this time to this time and then do this much homework, but then have extracurricular activities. And don't forget about that club because you need that on your resume to go into college. And then don't forget about the play and the chorus and the band. There is too much pressure on them. So if they come into the studio and I'm like, okay, we're going to give you this many counts and you're going to do this and let's work on your performance quality and polishing this technique, that's putting the makeup on the face without washing it. And that's not my best analogy for the record.
No, that's pretty great.
But it's something that maybe a mom at home can identify with. And so, I one of my dancers really needs to have, safe contact. And I always ask, like, can I give you a hug? Can I put my hand on your shoulder? That's from nonviolent communication, right? And, just being really cautious around people, making sure that their boundaries are respected. I'm training them that people should be asking you there's so many things here, right? Like people should be asking permission before they touch you. I am a domestic violence survivor. And, sorry, that just came out. And it is important that young people have complete, what's the word? Not martial.
Autonomy?
Autonomy. It's
Agency?
Agency.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important that these people, these young people, not just girls, but boys too, have
Mhm.
full agency
Mm-hmm.
over what they're receiving and what they're ingesting, right? We are so focused on what you're putting in your body for food, but what are you putting in your body through social media?
Mm-hmm.
What are you hearing your teacher passive aggressively say to you because they're just not having a good day? So, a girl will come in and she'll just, I can feel her anxiety from across the room, and I'll come up and be like, hey, and I'll be like, you want a hug? She's like, yes, I've been dying for your hug all day.
Oh.
And I'll give her a hug and I'll be like, how are you? And, I'm not doing the mom in the car. Like, I mean, I'm a mom, right? And Adrian would get in the car and the worst thing to do is be like, how's your day at school?
It's the only thing I do.
But
Like
what
that,
else
but
do we do?
yeah.
We have to ask, right?
Mhm.
And we're learning how to ask. And that's okay too. Like, I think forgiveness and I think acceptance, that we're all just learning how to be human around humans.
Mhm.
There's no one way. I just have my way of doing it that works for the people that come and dance with me and decide to stay,
Mhm.
which is a good amount of people.
Yeah, let's talk about how many people do you have dancing with you in the course of a year?
I mean, I see upwards of 100 to 120 people, and about 80% of them continuously stay on, and then some of
Mhm.
them graduate, and
Sure.
then some of them are recreational dancers. Like, I'm going to do this, and the next session I'm going to do violin, and then I'm going to try soccer. And
Mhm.
I love that. Like,
Mhm.
I don't have it's not about me.
Mhm.
It's what can I do for you today? And there's different, you know, areas where people need dance. Sometimes people just want to come in and learn those however many counts to that awesome James Brown song and learn a little bit about old school hip hop culture. And that's great. And
Mhm.
I'm so happy to meet them. And I say, dancers come in and they want dancing with me and they want dancing with someone else. I'm like, that's good. Go. Like, when I'm in New York City, I'm just going to say this about like small town competition. I'm not in competition with anybody, like I said, because nobody does what I do and I don't do what anybody else does.
Mhm.
It's great that there's so much dance here.
Mhm.
Because when I'm in New York, I'm at Alvin Ailey. And then later that day, I'm downtown at Gibney Dance. And then I go up to, Union Square, and I'm at Perry Dance Center. And then I go up to Steps on Broadway. Like, no one at those studios is saying you can't dance at another studio. You have to just dance with me. Because now it's about the teacher.
Mhm.
And that's wrong.
Mhm.
I don't use the word wrong very much, but that's one of them.
So let's talk about, you get these kids, you provide this safe place, this place of education. Like, you're not just instructing them on dance, you're instructing them on how to be a human in the world and feel good about the agency that they have. And then how do you transition into Grit and Grace, which is your performance every year at the Camden Opera House? This is going to be your 15th year, you said,
Mhm.
in this May. How many dancers join you for that performance?
So this show, we have 70 dancers.
Wow.
And it's so exciting. I think every year, people come in and they try it. Like we talked about the recreational dancers,
Mhm.
and then a huge portion of them stay on
Mhm.
for the dance show. And so it's a performance arts, you know, studio,
Mhm.
because I'm training people in the art of sharing a message of strength and hope.
Mhm.
We are creating messages of depth and weight that are relevant to the lives of the people who are dancing in the show. And I'm kind of the filter and the conduit for, what's happening in the world, because I have those conversations with dancers.
Mhm.
I find out a lot about where they're at. And teenagers are at a different place than adults are at.
Mhm.
Adults need different things. They need to be seen in a different way, and kids need different things too. And so blending that all together, and, each Grit and Grace show has a theme. And originally, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but when I started doing my own shows in the first couple years of running a business, I did power performance. And we had a few stories in the show that had a short film doc. I was getting really big into like film, or I was
Mhm.
learning and trying my best at it. But we had such a small cast. And so I think it's great to be open about things that we try that don't work, because every time you try something and it doesn't work, you get closer to the thing that does.
Mhm.
And then it was in 2016. So I opened in 2010. And then by 2016, I started the Grit and Grace format, which is very close, some people might say, to a recital. But it is not a recital because it's a theme that's woven throughout all the pieces, incorporating kids, teens, and adults, and telling really powerful stories from the stage. I'm not big on costumes, and my dancers lovingly accept me for the way that I am. I'm really big against textile waste and adding that to the pollution of our planet. And also, I'm really big against parents spending a lot of money on clothes, which, because of my story, now you understand why. So we want the focus to be on the art. And so we have 70 dancers. This is Grit and Grace 8. In there somewhere in the Grit and Graces, I rewrote an original adaptation to The Lion King and did a dance theater production. And it was amazing and sold out, and one of the only shows at that time that had sold out at the Strom Auditorium at the high school I graduated from, other than Phantom of the Opera. And then the pandemic came in as well. And so I wrote a story during the pandemic with me and 4 other dancers, my son being one of them, which was called The Discussion. And that was a story about rewiring your neural pathways. And at that time in my life, I was informed by how I was trying to heal from trauma and had a lot of PTSD that was crippling, that was challenging for me to be out in Camden. I couldn't go to the coffee shop. Like, I just was in crippling fear. And cathartically writing that story and performing that through Soundcheck series at the Camden Opera House, that was so masterfully done by them to create and provide dance spaces during dark theaters in the pandemic was essential. And it actually got picked up, and we got asked to go in 2021 to Harlem Dance Festival in New York and perform an excerpt from it.
Amazing.
And I had local actor Paul Hodges narrate it.
Oh, wow.
It was such an incredible experience. And then we came back, and then we moved into our new location, and then we picked back up with Grit and Grace 5, The Power of Love. And then, then we had Grit and Grace 6, Lifting You, and then Grit and Grace 7, The Moment Is Now, A Dancer's Resistance. And so this upcoming show is Grit and Grace 8, A Light in the Dark.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I want to end with what you're famous for.
Being silly. Maybe Grit and Grace shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess Grit and Grace, and whether it's on the Camden Opera House stage or it's in how I live my life, practicing what I preach and trying to show up for today, loving myself even when it's hard. Maybe that could be it.
I love that. Well, tell people where they can find you online.
You can go to KEADanceCenter.com to get information about my local Midcoast dance studio and get information about our upcoming shows, Grit and Grace 8, A Light in the Dark at the Camden Opera House, May 9th, 10th, 11th. Tickets are on sale right now at CamdenOperaHouse.com. And if you want more information on my podcast or my KEA Method workshop, and how I can come and support you wherever you are, you can go to thekeamethod.com and check it out. And just pick up the phone. It's the same phone number. Just call me up and we can chat about what you're looking for and how I can show up to bring light into your life for today.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here, KEA.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I just want to across the table hug you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, guys.
Hi, I'm Justine with RE/MAX Jarrett & Cohn here in Midcoast, Maine. Our real estate agency has 4 offices across the Midcoast, but more importantly, we live and work in the communities we serve. Our agents aren't just here for real estate. We're showing up for our neighbors. We support local businesses, volunteer at events, and regularly give back through fundraisers and community initiatives. This isn't just where we work, it's home, and we care about the people who make it special. Find home with RE/MAX Jarrett & Cohn.